answer correctly, you probably would. If not, well, too bad. So, first question. If you ate a loaf of dark rye bread and suddenly felt like bugs were crawling under your skin while hallucinating demons, what medieval melody did you catch? You will get A, B, C, D. So, a sweating sickness, Saint John's dance, ergotism, or the king's evil. So how was it called? You know, you've been eating some rye bread and it wasn't properly stored. Happens all the time. And it is C, ergotism. Eating this moldy fungi caused ergotism, leading to violent hallucinations and gangrene, as if you just consumed 1 kilogram, 2.2 libras, loaf of pure nightmares. Number 2, plates are for nobles. So peasants, as a peasant, your daily meal was slapped directly onto a trencher. What exactly was a trencher? A, hollowed out pumpkin. B, flattened sheepskin. C, a slab of hard stale bread. Or D, woven straw mats. So what was the stranger basically plate for you, peasant? And it is a slab of hard stale bread. So if it was hard and stale, it was plate made. A thick slab of 4-day-old bread measuring about 15 centimeters or 6 inches. I'm not gonna say it. A cross served as your plate, soaking up all the juices until you finally ate it at the end of the meal. Very efficient, very efficient. 3. It's Friday and the church absolutely forbids eating meat. Luckily, medieval law had a wild loophole allowing you to eat a specific furry mammal because it lived in the water and was legally deemed a fish. Which animal was it? I think it was in some, it wasn't everywhere, but somewhere. The beaver, the otter, or the otter, the waterfall, or the capybara. So what was classified as a fish? Everything lives in water, and it was the beaver. Because beavers swam, the church classified them as fish, making those fatty 1 kilogram, 2.2 libras, beaver tails, and perfectly legal and highly priced Friday feast. Beavers. You are hungry, shivering and eating pottage for the 5th day in a row. What exactly is this depressing peasant staple? What is pottage? A, pickled animal guts. B, mashed turnips. C, tree bark and honey. Or D, watery oat and pea stew. So what can it be? And it's of course the watery oat and pea stew. You'd survive on pottage, an endlessly boiling pot of mushy grains and peas that simmered over 200 Celsius or 392 Fahrenheit fire for days on end. Basically it was boiling all the time and you just put another stuff there. And there was no bacteria because it was all the time over the fire, and you had to have a fire to not freeze, fire was essential. So pretty clever. We should do, I said it in another video, we should do pottage making ASMR one day. A brutal winter just ruined the harvest. To avoid completely starving, desperate peasants baked famine bread by mixing what bizarre survival ingredient into the dough. Famine bread. Dried horse manure. Ground up inner pine bark from the pine, crushed river shells, or boiled leather scraps. So what's famine bread? And it's ground up inner pine bark. Peasants would strip pine trees bare up to 2 meters, 6.5 feet, high to grind the inner bark into a flour substitute just to keep their stomachs full. This was made during crisis, when it was like Black Friday, the depression. There was like sawdust put into bread too. I remember, I think somewhere, because sawdust is just fiber, it just makes you not hungry. So, if you ever ate bread with sawdust, put the comment that you did. I would love to know your experience, and if you didn't, like the video, so I know you are sawdust free. What highly prized, incredibly expensive African spice was used by lords to give their medieval dishes a peppery, citrusy kick? How was it called? Tears of chaos, dragon's blood, grains of paradise, or devil's root. And it was called grains of paradise. Oh, nice. Grains of paradise was a luxury spice that cost more per 30 grams, 1 ounce, than a peasant made in an entire grueling week of farm labor. Fasting was mandatory for roughly half the year in medieval Europe. What foods were absolutely forbidden by the church during these miserable periods? Anything grown underground, any food cooked with fire, meat, dairy and eggs, or salt and spices. What you had to not eat for almost half a year. It was of course meat, dairy and eggs. For over 150 days a year, the church strictly forbade animal products, effectively turning the entire peasant population into mandatory, albeit miserable, vegans. Because meat is expensive, that today we have huge luxuries of that, and vegans want to steal that from us. Okay. Without a magical modern appliance, how did peasants preserve their slaughtered pork for the freezing winter months? Burying it in snowbanks, soaking it in stale beer, coating it in beeswax, that would be smart, or aggressive smoking and salting. How do you preserve the meat? Of course, smoking and salting. We still do that in Czechia before Christmas. All the dads are trying to smoke the meats. Maybe one day I will be too. I will upgrade from Unc to Dad. We will see. Without a 4 degrees Celsius or 39 Fahrenheit refrigerator to keep bacteria away, meat was hung from the rafters to dry out in the smoke for weeks to prevent rapid rot. Smoking these meats like a brisket. Is that a song about Mark Zuckerberg smoking meats? Yes, that came to my brain rot head. Okay, plagues and poultices. What terrifying plague doctor masks weren't just for scaring the locals. Why did medieval doctors stuff the long beaks with strong smelling herbs and flowers? You know, the plague doctor, they had like herbs there to trap deadly fleas, to filter contaminated water, to soothe the patient's nerves, or to block out bad air. And of course, to block out bad air. Doctors incorrectly believed diseases spread via miasma or bad smelling air, so they stuffed their beaks with roses and cloves to fight off the sting. Miasma theory. Yeah, that didn't work out, didn't it? You have grotesquely swollen lymph nodes from scrofula. According to medieval medicine, what is the only surefire magical way to cure this disease? Scrofula. Drinking crushed emeralds, sleeping in a church crypt, a physical touch from the king, or eating a raw toad. And it was a physical touch from the king. Scrofula was a grim tuberculosis infection that peasants fully believed could be miraculously cured by a literal poke from the reigning monarch. You've got a terrible migraine that just won't quit. The local surgeon decides to perform trepanation. What exactly is he about to do to you? What is trepanation? Submerge you in freezing water, drill a hole straight through your skull, apply 50 exactly leeches to your face, or brand your forehead with hot iron. And of course, drill a hole straight through your skull. Trepanation involved boring a 5mm 0.2 inch hole directly into your head to release the evil spirits, allegedly causing your headache. Trepanation. Do you know if people survived that? How did they survive that back in the day? It had to get infected. Somebody, some trepanation expert who is definitely under this video, explain that to me in the comments. You will be a hero. Oh no, you need a rotting tooth pulled and a gangrenous toe amputated. Who are you going to visit in the village for these gruesome procedures? A. The barber. B. The blacksmith. C. The executioner. Or the priest. And it was the barber slash surgeon. The local barber surgeon didn't just trim your beard. He handled everything from pulling teeth to amputating limbs using the exact same rusty blades. Back in the day, now if you lose scissors, you just buy a new one. It's not that big a deal, but back in the day, it was it cost months of wages to have those. A medieval physician takes a fresh sample of your pee to properly diagnose your illness. What stomach churning diagnostic step is he going to perform? Boiling it to smell the vapors, pouring it on a houseplant, tasting it to see if it's sweet, or letting a dog sniff it, some special dog, and it's tasting it to see if it's sweet. Physicians unblinkingly tasted a patient's urine. If it tasted sweet like honey, it was dead ringer diagnosis for diabetes. They had diabetes even then. What mythological creature did medieval dentists completely believe was living inside your mouth, slowly chewing painful holes into your teeth? A sugar pixie, the bone mite, the tooth worm, or the enamel goblin? And it was the tooth worm. They didn't know about enamel. Dentists blamed cavities on literal tooth worms and would try to smoke them out by burning henbane seeds right in your face. Interesting. Your physician claims your 4 humors are severely out of balance. For a human theory, yeah. To fix this, he immediately prescribes what terrifyingly common treatment: A. Extreme bloodletting. B. Swallowing a tapeworm. C. Staring directly at the sun. Or D. Inhaling mercury vapor. And of course, extreme bloodletting, that was very popular. Doctors believed illness meant your bodily fluids were whacked out, requiring them to drain up to 500 milliliters, 17 fluid ounces of your blood into a bowl. In a truly baffling display of medieval folk medicine, what farm animal were peasants sometimes instructed to kiss directly on the lips to cure a nasty toothache? It was a goat, a rooster, a pig, or a donkey. And it was a donkey. If you had a toothache, some village healers genuinely advised you to find a donkey and plant a wet kiss right on its snout to magically transfer the pain away. Did it work? I don't know, maybe. Now, fashion and hygiene. You need your filthy linen tunic to look blindingly white for Sunday Mass. What naturally ammonia-rich liquid did peasants collect in giant vats to wash their clothes? Ammonia. Fermented apple cider, cow saliva, stale human urine, or rainwater mixed with chalk. And it was stale human urine. People would literally pee in pots and let it sit until it became pure, foul-smelling ammonia, which acted as a fantastic, albeit disgusting, natural bleach. What was the name of the baggy, diaper-like linen underwear that medieval peasant men wore to prevent intense chafing during field work? Chafing. Brace, pantaloons, breeches, or codpieces. And what's called brace were ultra baggy underpants secured with a drawstring, serving as the medieval man's all-purpose defense against the friction of rough wool. Yeah, you had to have many clothes to not get damaged by your own clothes. To protect their fragile leather shoes from city streets flooded with muck and animal waste, what elevated wooden overshoes did peasants strap onto their feet? It was called sabots, stilts, clogs, or buttons. It was called buttons. Acted like medieval platform shoes, lifting your feet up above the 10 centimeters 4 inches of raw sewage running down the cobblestones. Yeah, so that you just like stripped something like, I think like ski, you know, if you have like put it on. Contrary to the filthy peasant myth, people actually loved getting clean. Where did urban peasants go to routinely soak away the daily crime? Holy water fonts, public bath houses called stews, the local monastery fountain, or boiling cauldrons of beer. That's of course public bathhouses called stews. Cities were packed with public bathhouses known as stews, where locals could kick back in relaxing 38 degrees Celsius, 100 Fahrenheit communal tubs. It's time to spruce up your peasant hovel. What fragrant material did you scatter on the hard dirt floor to mask the stench of your indoor livestock? A. Sawdust. B. Dried cow dung. C. Crushed lavender and rushes. Or D. Seaweed. It's of course crushed lavender and rushes. I love the smell of lavender. Do you like lavender? Let me know in the comments. Carpets were for kings, so peasants thickly insulated their floors with woven rushes mixed with sweet-smelling herbs to fight off the smell of the family pig. You are visiting the local castle and need to use the toilet, known as a garderobe. Where does everything you deposit end up from the castle? Burned in a massive furnace, funneled into the kitchen gardens, collected in silver buckets, or dropping straight into the castle moat. And it was dropping straight into the castle moat. You can see, like, if you see like how the tower of the castle in Czechia everywhere, you have like these little on the castle. There is like prominent. It goes out, and there is a hole, and there you like shit, and it falls down. Oh, so it doesn't hit the wall, but it just goes down. So pretty clever. Okay, so a garderobe was just a tiny closet with guardrobe, a hole where your business plummeted 50 feet straight down to splash into the putrid moat. Your straw mattress is crawling with dead bugs. What specific plant leaves did peasants scatter around their beds to physically trap the biting insects? Oak leaves, kidney bean leaves, poison ivy, or mint leaves. And it was surprisingly kidney bean leaves. Kidney bean leaves are covered in microscopic razor-sharp hook hairs that acted like organic Velcro, physically skewering any bedbugs trying to crawl up to bite you. That's smart. sanitation was the complex chemical process peasants used to make harsh lye soap. What two gross ingredients did they boil together to make it? Animal fat and wood ash, mud and tree sap, crushed bones and river clay, beeswax and rotten fruit. And it is animal fat and wood ash. Croatians know. Let's move on. Through saponification, peasants combined rendered pork fat with lye leached from hardwood ashes to create incredibly caustic, eye-burning soap. Isn't it like crazy? Like, it's so crazy that people invented so much stuff before they had idea how it works. It's just the whole civilization just invented stuff, and then we were like, huh, how it works. Isn't that crazy? Okay, let's move on. It's a holiday, and the whole village is playing mob football. What served as the ball in this incredibly violent, rules-free medieval brawl? A carved wooden sphere, a tightly wrapped ball of rags, an inflated pig bladder, or a hollowed out cabbage. And it was, of course, an inflated pig bladder. Entire rival villages would punch and kick each other, trying to move an inflated pig's bladder across a chaotic pitch that could stretch 5 kilometers, 3.1 miles long. That would be interesting today. We should revive that. The traveling theater has arrived. Not selling indulgences, but fun. What were the loud, special effect-filled street plays depicting biblical stories on moving wagons called? A. Mystery plays. B. Miracle peasants. C. Holy dramas. Or D. The divine comedies. And it was mystery plays. Mystery plays were the blockbuster movies of the Middle Ages, featuring elaborate costumes, trapdoors, and literal fire effects rolled through the streets on massive carts. Before you can farm your own tiny plot of land to survive, you are legally forced to perform corvée labor. Corvée labor. What does it mean? You must dig graves for the church. You must build weapons for the king. You must work the local lord's field for free, or you must patrol the village borders at night. And it was, of course, you must work the local lord's fields for free. Corvée was an exhausting, unpaid labor tax where peasants had to plow the local lord's land before they were allowed to grow their own family's food. Crazy. Harvest is over, but your family is still starving. You resort to cleaning, which gives you the legal right to do what? Pick up leftover grains dropped by reapers. Steal 1 chicken per month. Beg outside the Lord's kitchen. Or forage for wild mushrooms in the graveyard. And it was pick up leftover grains dropped by reapers. Cleaning was a vital safety net that legally permitted the absolute poorest peasants to scar the stubble of harvested field to collect any tiny dropped seeds the scythes missed. It's autumn. and you are exercising your vital peasant right of pannage. Pannage. What does this bizarre medieval law allow you to do? Pannage. Cut down exactly one tree for firewood. Let your pigs roam the forest to eat acorns. Fish in the king's private pond for 1 hour, or brew beer without paying taxes. And it was let your pigs roam the forest to eat acorns. Pannage gave peasants the legal right to march their pigs deep into the royal woods, to gorge on fallen acorns and furiously fatten up before winter. The church bells are ringing the curfew or curfew. What everyday activity must you immediately stop doing? Talking loudly outside, drinking alcohol, singing secular songs, or keeping your heart fire burning. And it was keeping your heart fire burning. The bell meant cover fire, curfew, legally requiring everyone to extinguish their hearts to prevent the entire town's thatched roof from going up in flames while people slept. Makes sense. Looking for some brutal medieval entertainment, crowds loved gathering around an arena to watch a chained beast fight off a pack of vicious dogs in bloodsport known as what? Bear jousting, the beast brawl, beer baiting, or the fur pit. And it was beer baiting. It was incredibly gruesome. Large crowds would cheer wildly as mastiffs were unleashed on a captive bear just for the sake of chaotic, bloody entertainment. The water in the river might be muddy, so peasants constantly drank small ale while working the fields. Why was this such a popular daytime drink? It was highly caloric but extremely low in alcohol. It cured the plague. It tasted exactly like modern soda. The local priest legally mandated it. And it was highly caloric but extremely low in alcohol. Small ale was a thick, cloudy brew sitting around 1% alcohol, and peasants easily slammed back 3 liters, 0.8 gallons, a day just for the pure carb energy to plow fields. Crime and punishment. That I think this is the last one, the last segment. A woman in your village has been legally accused of nagging and gossiping. Oh my god. We need to bring this back. Okay. A brutal punishment. She is locked into an agonizing metal cage called a what? That would solve so much world problems. I have to make a note there. The silence helm, the gossip's yoke, the scold's bridle, or the chatterbox iron. And it's the scold's bridle. The scold's bridle was an iron muzzle slapped onto women accused of talking too much, often featuring a spiked metal blade that was shoved directly into the mouth to hold the tongue down. Different era, the same problems. Let's move on. You've been accused of witchcraft and subjected to the trial by water. You know that one. You are tied up and thrown into the deep end of a pond. What result proves you are innocent? You float to the top. The water changes color. A fish bites you, or you sink to the bottom. And it was, of course, you sink to the bottom. Water was considered spiritually pure. So if you floated, it meant the water was rejecting your evil soul. If you sank like a 50 kilogram, 110 libra, lips, stone, you were innocent, though you might drown. Yeah. A pig aggressively trampled a local child, so the medieval courts are convening. What completely baffling legal process is about to happen to the animal? It's forced to fight a wolf. It is put on a formal trial with a defense lawyer. It is legally exiled to another country. It is publicly blessed by a pope. It is put on formal trial with a defense lawyer. Medieval courts literally put livestock on trial for murder, dressing them in human clothes, while fully qualified lawyers argued for their lives in front of a judge. Of course, it wasn't all, but it happened in some. There was a lot of things that happened in history. If you dig deep, humans are weird. If you think that something didn't happen, it probably happened. Let me know some interesting fact in the comments, something interesting from history. You are on the run from the angry sheriff. You sprint into the local cathedral and aggressively claim sanctuary. How many days are you legally safe from arrest while inside? 3 days, 7 days, 40 days, or 100 days? And it was 40 days. If you touch the knocker on a church door, the law couldn't touch you for exactly 40 days, giving you just enough time to confess your sins and flee into permanent exile. A thief just stole your prized chicken. You yell out the hue and cry, which legally forces every single peasant in earshot to do what? Hide in their homes until morning, throw rocks at the thief's house, drop everything and help you chase the criminal, or donate 1 copper coin to replace your loss. And it's to drop everything and help you chase the criminal. If the hue and cry was shouted, you were legally obliged to instantly drop your farming tools and sprint after the criminal yourself, or face massive fines, mob justice. You got into drunken fistfight at the alehouse and busted your neighbor's lip. The local lord fines you a blood white. What exactly are you paying for? A penalty specifically for shedding another man's blood, the cost of the bandages, a forced donation to the local hospital, or a bribe to keep the sheriff away. So what was blood white? A penalty specifically for shedding another man's blood. A blood white was a specific heavy financial penalty paid straight to the king or lord just because your violent temper caused actual blood to spill on their land. Your local barker is a total fraud. He's been caught scheming though to make his loaves illegally small. How will the town brutally humiliate him, forcing him to eat his body weight in yeast, making him bake naked in the town square, dunking him in a vat of boiling water, streets with the bad bread tied around his neck. Fraudulent bakers were tied to a wooden hurdle and dragged through the literal mud with their lightweight, pathetic gloves strung around their necks for everyone to throw garbage at. And the last question: you are starving and decide to illegally poach on the king's prize deer in the royal forest. If the royal foresters catch you, what horrifying punishment awaits you? Having your thumbs chopped off, being branded with an antler iron, being forced to serve in cavalry, or having your eyes gouged out. And it was having your eyes gouged out. Hunting in the king's private woods without explicit permission was deemed a direct attack on the crown, and forest law frequently demanded blinding or the loss of a hand of the bloody penalty. So, I hope you like the video. If you want more, let me know that in the comments. And now on the screen is another video that you might like. So if you are not sleeping, watch it. And I'm going to see you in the next one. And you can find more stuff if you become a member. It helps a lot. So if you manage to go to this point, you can check it out. Good night.